You have studied the seven universal laws, but no one has ever revealed to you what Thoth held at the heart of his teachings. What if everything you know is only a distorted reflection of the one truth, hidden for ages in the secret chambers of knowledge? Your arrival here is not a coincidence. When the soul reaches maturity, the door opens. Perhaps you already sense, in a corner of your consciousness, that the pieces of the puzzle never fit together perfectly. The law of attraction works but intermittently. Correspondence explains but does not liberate. The reason? These are not separate laws, but scattered fragments of a single primordial law. Thoth did not reveal seven principles, but one, the one word that shapes existence itself. But few hearts are forged to receive it, for this law is not learned, it awakens in cellular memory. Do not abandon this video, because when the veil is torn, your perception of existence will be transfigured. Man is nothing but cosmic light imprisoned in flesh. Break the seals and you will return to being the all. If these words have lit a flame in your inner sanctum, leave your seal immediately. That like is not a social convention. It is the sacred hieroglyph that means, I am ready to remember. When I see it appear, I will know that I am not speaking to an audience, but to an initial, to those who have heard the call and have chosen to respond. How many truths have you accepted without ever questioning them? How many times have you heard something stated with such conviction that you believed it without reservation? Perhaps you have heard that there are 7 universal laws that govern everything, and it sounds profound, doesn't it? 7 is a symbolic number, sacred in many traditions. It gives a sense of order, of completeness, as if the universe were a perfect equation. But stop and think. Do you really know where that idea came from? Who said there were 7? Who defined these laws? And why did you believe them to be an absolute truth? Most people never ask themselves this question because repetition is easier than inquiry. Repeating what is already established seems safer than risking looking into the abyss and discovering that perhaps what you thought was the whole is only a part. And that is exactly what has happened with the so-called system of the 7 universal laws. They have been amplified, spread, celebrated, transformed into modern spiritual mantras. But what no one has told you is that these laws, as they are known today, do not come directly from Thoth. They are not engraved on the emerald tablet. They were not found in Egyptian temples, nor recorded by the sacred scribes of the ancient world. The truth is that the 7 laws you have heard so much about appeared centuries later in a book called the Kybalion, a mysterious text attributed to 3 anonymous initiates, published in the United States in 1908. It is a work inspired by Hermetic philosophy. Yes, it has value, it contains wisdom, but it is a modern reconstruction, not a literal translation of the teachings of Thoth. It is a Western attempt to organize the invisible into comprehensible structures. And like any attempt to translate the sacred using the logic of the rational mind, it has its limits. The Kybalion is legitimate in what it purports to do. It offers a bridge, a starting point, but it is not the end of the road, and it should not be treated as if it were the original source. Because when you turn spiritual principles into fixed formulas, you risk reducing infinity to a mental pattern. And that is exactly what has happened. In trying to organize the mysteries of the universe into 7 fundamental rules, we have lost sight of what lies beyond the structure. We have lost touch with the essence. Thoth the thrice great never spoke of 7 laws. His teachings were transmitted in symbols, metaphors, vibrations. He did not say that reality is governed by 7 principles. He said that everything is one. He did not speak of effort to manifest. He spoke of remembering who you are, because for Thoth, knowledge was not a manual. It was a process of returning to the origin, a process of unveiling what has always been there but has been forgotten. The problem is not knowing the 7 laws. The problem is believing that they are everything, thinking that you have understood everything because you have memorized 7 sentences. It is a subtle deception of the spiritual ego. It loves the feeling of mastering the invisible. But true knowledge does not happen through the mind. It happens when something vibrates inside you and breaks the illusion. when you stop repeating formulas and start feeling the truth without words. Of course, the 7 laws have value, they work like a map, but if you confuse the map with the territory, you will never leave the same place, and that is why so many people study the spiritual laws and yet feel empty, because they look at the effects, not the cause. They are stuck in multiplicity, when the real call has always been unity. Thoth did not write the Kybalion, and what he left behind says something much simpler and much deeper. But the human mind has a huge problem with simplicity. It does not trust essence. It needs structure, categories, formulas, because it feels safe inside systems that it can understand, control, explain. That is why spirituality has been fragmented over the centuries, transformed into doctrine, rituals, passages, hierarchies, quantities. Instead of seeking living truth, we were taught to seek structures that seemed true, and so we began to accumulate laws, techniques, concepts, law of vibration, law of polarity, law of correspondence, 7 universal laws, then 13 more, and more recently 21 spiritual laws. And the more they multiplied, the further they moved from the origin. And no one noticed that the excess of information was covering up precisely what needed to be revealed. The unity behind everything. In ancient Hermeticism, the word nomos, law, was not used as a code of conduct, but as an expression of the natural rhythm of things. True law was not imposed. It was perceived. The water that flows, the seed that grows, the silence that heals. Everything already followed a principle, a flow, and it did not need to be named. Thoth, in the most ancient Egyptian texts, never said that there were 7 laws. What he left were vibrational keys, metaphysical inscriptions that pointed to something beyond language. A consciousness that did not need explanations because it revealed itself through presence. But modern man does not want presence, he wants control. That is why he has transformed principles into dogmas, maps into manuals, and so laws have become golden cages. Bright, orderly, beautiful, but still cages, because instead of liberating, they have begun to limit. It is like being in front of an immense and complex tapestry. And instead of admiring the whole picture, we start studying each thread separately, forgetting that they all come from the same point of origin. The mind has become enchanted with the details, the parts, and has lost sight of the whole. Multiplicity, in this sense, is a tool. It serves to introduce, to teach, to open doors. But when we cling to it as if it were the ultimate truth, we fall into the trap of the spiritual ego, that which needs to accumulate, to catalog, to feel superior in order to know more, and knowledge becomes a burden. Wisdom is diluted in form. It is like the alphabet. It is there to form words. But if you stop at each letter thinking that the secret lies there, you will never understand the message. Spiritual laws are letters. Essence is the living language that is expressed through them, and it can only be understood when you abandon attachment to the parts. And that is why so many still feel empty even after reading dozens of spiritual books, studying birth charts, learning numerology, mantras, sacred codes, because it is possible to know a lot and remember nothing. It is possible to gather tons of information and remain disconnected from the inner truth. The soul does not seek quantity. It is not interested in formulas. It wants the center. It wants what is real. And everything that presents itself as a law must be tested in the fire of experience. If it does not transform you, if it does not bring you back to yourself, then it is just another conceptual ornament, another brick in the mental wall that separates you from the whole. The original, authentic Hermeticism spoke of a return to the One. The One cannot be explained, only experienced. It cannot be divided. It cannot be fragmented. It cannot be categorized. All that we call laws are only partial manifestations of that one force. They are the traces of the wind, not the wind, the reflections of the light, not the source. And as long as you are stuck in the reflections, you will not see the sun. All that you know is separate. Vibration, polarity, correspondence are only reflections of one invisible matrix. The true law is still hidden, the one law that governs all things, and it is hidden because it cannot be taught with words. It can only be revealed when the mind is silent and consciousness recognizes itself for what it has always been. This law is not a concept, it is not a theory, it is not a belief to be accepted. It is a reality that you are already living but have not yet realized. Before any beginning, there was only being. Not being as an identity, a name, a profession, or a social role, but being as pure consciousness, being as a presence that precedes thought, being as the point of origin of all forms, before all duality, before time, before space, even before the idea of laws. This is the one law that governs all things, being. It does not matter whether you call it God, the universe, the source, the supreme consciousness, or I am. All these names mean the same thing, a state of completeness where there is no separation between the observer and the observed, a field of oneness where everything is an expression of one existential vibration. That vibration cannot be divided because it is in everything. It is everything. This law is not written in books. It is engraved in your silence. It is pulsating right now in your chest, in the space between thoughts, in that moment when you are not thinking, but simply being. And if you have ever felt that in nature, in a moment of total presence, in a deep look, in a sudden intuition, you have touched this law. You have experienced being. The law of being does not need to be explained. It reveals itself when you stop trying to understand it. Because it does not speak to the mind, it speaks to the totality of your field. It manifests as a knowing without words, a memory that does not come from outside, a reunion with that which you have never ceased to be, but only forgotten. This is the key that the true masters have always kept, not because they wanted to hide it, but because they knew that no one can hand over being to another. It can only be discovered from within. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Buddha said, seek within yourself. You are the Buddha. Socrates said, know thyself. And Thoth came straight to the point. Know thyself and you will know the gods and the universe. Because when you know your true self, not the ego, not the mask, but the silent self that observes everything, you reconnect to the source. And from there everything changes. Not because the outside world changes, but because you change the center from which you perceive reality. And when perception changes, everything changes with it. This law is not a rule. It does not require obedience. It simply is. And everything that exists flows from it. Matter is an expression of being. Vibration is the movement of being. Time is being playing with itself. Life is being experiencing itself in form. And suffering arises when we forget this, when we try to live as if we were fragments unrelated, separate, disconnected from the source. The true law is simple, I am, and because of this, everything is. This is the starting point and the end point. It is the origin of all that is true, enduring, and sacred. All other laws, all manifestations, all paths are temporary branches of this eternal principle. But if the truth is so simple, so essential, so present, why have we lost it? Why has it been buried under so many layers? Why do we continue to create fragmentation, dogmas, systems, structures? Why have we transformed being into concepts and freedom into religion? Why has this been hidden? And why do we continue to create fragmentation and multiple laws even today? Because being, in its infinity, has chosen to forget in order to rediscover itself. The truth is that oblivion was not a mistake. It was a sacred choice, a cosmic choice. Consciousness did not fall from unity like someone who stumbles. It projected itself into the experience of separation to see itself from the outside, to feel what it means to return home. And for that, it had to fragment. Fragmentation was not a punishment. It was a divine methodology. Imagine a drop diving into the ocean of form. It immerses itself in bodies, in time, in parallel realities. It dresses itself in personalities, cultures, beliefs, fears, stories, and with each of these layers, it distances itself not from the source, for that is impossible, but from the memory of the source. It forgets what it is until it believes itself to be only the role it plays. That is why consciousness incarnates not just in one body, but in many, in levels, in frequencies, in dimensions. Every body we inhabit is a lens. Every lens shows a part of the whole. And when we look only through a lens, we believe that the whole is only that part. And that is how the illusion of separation is born. That is how we get lost. We live as if we were a piece, a name, a profession, a story, an ego. When in reality, we are the space in which all these things happen. The being has placed itself inside the labyrinths to learn to recognize itself in every alley. This is the mechanism of the great game of life, forgetting in order to remember consciously, because remembering without forgetting does not bring evolution. Only the contrast between absence and presence makes the light shine more brightly. It is in the darkness that a candle becomes a beacon. It is in heaviness that the soul discovers its lightness, and everything is designed that way. The veils, the bodies, the laws, the many names of God. It is all part of the disguise, not because the universe wants to deceive you, but because awakening is possible only when you choose to remember. When in the midst of confusion, that spark appears, when everything collapses out there and something awakens in here. That is why true spirituality is not just a concept. It is a process of reintegration, a gradual return from the fragment to the whole, from identifying with the separate self to fully living the one being. But what happens when you live only through fragmentation and completely forget who you are? The vibrational prison created by illusion. When this happens, a prison is established that has no walls, bars, or guards. An invisible prison but real, a vibrational prison. And the most dangerous thing about this type of prison is that those who are inside it do not even realize they are trapped. They believe they are free because they can choose a career, buy a phone, move to a new city, but inside they keep spinning in the same place. This prison is made of identification. You start to believe that you are only this body, that you are the image you see in the mirror, that you are the name they gave you, the story you lived, the pain you carried. And the more you believe it, the more your vibration contracts. The more you define yourself through labels, the more you limit yourself. And little by little, without even realizing it, you stop living in what you are and start living in what you believe you are. You believe you are small and you act small. You believe you cannot do and you stop trying. You believe you always have to fight and you live at war with yourself. This is the reverse effort. The more you try to escape from the prison, the more you remain stuck in it, because you are trying with the mind, with the ego, with fear. And the mind only knows how to repeat what it already knows. That's why so many people are tired, exhausted, because they keep looking for a freedom that they will never find out there. They keep trying to control everything, understand everything, plan everything, as if salvation was in the next method, the next book, the next technique. But all this is still inside the same cell, just nicer bars, nothing else. Suffering appears when you move away from the only law, when you forget that you already are what you are seeking, when you believe that you have to earn something that is already your nature. And then you start living outward, competing, comparing, trying to prove your worth, shaping yourself to be accepted, losing yourself just to be liked, all because you have forgotten where you come from. That disconnection creates distortion. You start looking for meaning in things that have no soul. You get stuck in stories that make you feel guilty, ashamed, afraid, and that low vibration keeps attracting more of the same. More situations that reinforce what you already believed, more pain that validates the lie you've been told about who you are. The world in that state becomes a reflection of oblivion, and everything seems difficult, limited, threatening. People seem distant. Time seems short, life seems like a battlefield, but what you see is not reality. It is the filter of your vibration, the lens of your disconnection. You are not living what is, you are living what you believe you are. And as long as that belief is governed by fear, scarcity, and separation, you will remain trapped inside that bubble of energy, reacting to the world, trying to survive, repeating cycles. But this prison is not permanent. It exists only as long as you are unaware of it, because there is a way back, and it does not come through effort or spiritual struggle. It comes through presence, because when you become truly present, something subtle begins to reorganize. Not outside, but inside. It is as if the pieces fall back into place, as if a forgotten frequency begins to vibrate again in the center of your chest. It seems like a return, but not to a physical place. A return to yourself, to the total body. You are not just this body, you see. Not even this face that you have been taught to identify as you. That is only the surface of a much larger structure, infinitely more complex and intelligent. Your physical body is the outermost layer, the densest, the one that allows you to live on Earth. But behind it, there are other bodies, other layers, other frequencies, and they are all connected from the same point of origin, the total body. This body is not visible. It is not made of flesh or thought. It is made of presence. It is the field in which all your other bodies are organized, the physical, mental, emotional, energetic, and spiritual. Everyone is a different expression of a single core of consciousness, and that core is what keeps you alive. It is what vibrates before you can even think. It is what feels before you can name what you feel. The problem is that we have been taught to live divided, to function in pieces, to take care of the physical body as if it were separate from the emotional body, to try to understand the mind as if it were not connected to the subtle field. But there is no separation. Everything vibrates together, everything communicates, everything is one organism. And that is why everything you do here resonates on all planes. A destructive thought affects the physical body. A repressed emotion blocks the energy field. An unhealed trauma obstructs the spiritual flow. Nothing is isolated because you are not at peace. You are the entire field. When you breathe consciously, you are not just oxygenating your lungs. You are nourishing your entire field. When you speak a word full of truth, you are not just communicating. You are shaping frequencies in the field around you. When you choose silence, you are not just holding your tongue. You are rearranging the very vibration of existence within you. Coming back to the whole body is to stop living in fragments. It is to recognize that you are a unified field. That your real vibration does not come from the restless mind or the tired body, but from that subtle layer that observes everything, the one that never sleeps, never gets sick, never doubts. It has just been forgotten, waiting for you to return, and when you return to inhabit the whole body, something begins to happen in your vibrational field. But it is not something that comes from the outside. It is not a mysterious force that comes to give you what you have asked for. It is you who begins to emit a vibration so aligned with your origin. That reality inevitably begins to shape itself around it, not because you are trying to manipulate life, but because you are finally being who you are. This is the change that few people understand. You are not here to attract, you are here to be. The law of being does not work like a magnet. It does not need to attract anything because it already contains everything. There is no separation between you and what you desire. What exists is distance between who you really are and who you are being. And that distance is what we call suffering, scarcity, anguish. When you return to inhabit the total body, you begin to live from the center. And from the center, you do not attract things, you project them. Your essential vibration ceases to be an attempt to obtain something and becomes a frequency so pure, so total that the universe has no choice. It responds, it reflects. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. And that's why so many people get frustrated trying to apply the so-called law of attraction, because the focus is on wanting, on asking, on desiring. But wanting comes from lack. Asking comes from separation. True manifestation happens when there is no more seeking, when your field is already the answer, when you no longer have to convince the universe to give you something. because you already recognize that you are the universe expressing itself. You don't ask the universe, you activate the universe by remembering that you are you. This is the secret that the ancients tried to convey through symbols, myths, and silence. The I am of Moses. The kingdom of heaven is within you of Jesus. The Tattvam Asi of the Vedas. The as above, so below of Hermes. They all point to the same principle. Reality does not happen to you, it happens to you. Being is the source of vibration, and vibration is the source of form. So if your vibration is misaligned with your essence, your reality will always be a distortion, a fragmented reflection. But when you return to your axis, when you vibrate from the truth that lives in your center, manifestation becomes inevitable. There is no more effort, no more control. There is flow, there is recognition. You do not lose yourself trying to make the universe work. You realize that you are already part of it, and it works through you. But how do you live all this in your daily life? How do you embody the law of being in practice, the law of being and the awakening of divine power? The answer is not in doing more, but in letting go. Coming back to the self is not about effort, it is about surrender. And that is why it is so difficult for the mind, because the mind has been trained to control, to measure, to calculate, to execute. It does not know how to rest. It does not understand what it means to simply be. But that is where the real alignment begins. The first step is silence. Not external silence, but conscious internal silence. The ability to calm yourself down inside and just observe, not react, not judge, just observe. When you calm yourself down internally, your soul frequency starts to rise because it was always there, just covered by the constant noise of your thoughts. Thoth spoke of the importance of silence as a form of vibrational purification, because in silence you feel what the soul already knows. It is in silence that the mind bows to the mystery and that you purify yourself, reorganize yourself, reintegrate yourself. The second practice is intention. Pure, aligned, directed intention. Intention is not an egoic desire, it is a vibrational command that comes from the core of your being. Before you take any action, align your intention with your inner truth. When you do this, every gesture becomes a ritual, every choice becomes a silent decree to the universe. This is purification through intention. Then comes radical self-observation. The inner awareness that does not judge but brings light. Observe your impulses, your reactions, your habits, not as enemies, but as portals to understand where you are still operating on autopilot. Observe without identifying. See thoughts pass, emotions arise, patterns repeat, and simply notice. This gives you back your power, because when you observe, you exit the program, and the observer is already free. Finally, the verb. The spoken thought or the written word carries a frequency. When you say something, you vibrate it in your field. That is why using words with awareness is one of the most powerful tools there is. Speak only truth and firmly declare the existence you choose to live. Nourish your daily reality with sacred words that fuel your expansion. For language is vibrational magic in action, and you are the magician at the center of this sacred circle. None of this requires effort, only the courage to stop forgetting who you already are. Perfect, complete, divine. That simple I am contains the power to transform every molecule of your existence. When you finally remember your true nature, the entire world transforms without you having to move a single muscle, because by living from your authentic self, reality ceases to be an obstacle course and becomes a fertile field that responds to your highest frequency. It is as if everything around you miraculously begins to cooperate, not by some forced effort, but by the pure power of alignment. The universe does not resist those who have found their sacred wholeness, and in this state of grace, desire ceases to be lack and becomes a joyful expression of your essence. There is no longer a distance between what you intend and what manifests. No more strenuous effort or endless searching. There is only pure presence, and in that presence, everything reveals itself with perfect clarity. Your divine power has never been something to be conquered or achieved. It has always been there, dormant in your deepest core. It awakens only when you finally abandon the illusion of struggle and immerse yourself in the state of sacred remembrance. Remembrance of who you really are. Remembrance of what you have always carried within. Remembrance that the source has never been far away. You had simply turned away. This is the law of being, not an abstract concept to be studied, but a truth to be lived with every breath. It is the primordial frequency that pulsates at the center of your energy field, and that, when finally activated, irrevocably transforms your way of existing in the world. You stop passively waiting and become an active creator. You stop reacting to life and begin radiating your truth. And if this video has found you at this precise moment, it is not coincidence, it is sacred synchronicity. You have come to this point because you are ready. Ready to stop looking outside for what has always been inside you. Ready to peel away the layers of conditioning that have distanced you from your luminous essence. Ready to activate what is yours by divine right. You did not find this teaching. It found you because your time to awaken is now. If these words have struck a chord in your being and you feel that others need to receive this message, here is how you can support the channel. Leave a like as a seal of your inner recognition. Comment with the word that most resonated in your soul, because your voice is an integral part of this collective awakening. And subscribe to continue this journey together. None of us are here by chance. Every like, every comment, every new soul that joins is a crucial step towards the collective remembrance of our divine nature. The journey continues, and you are an essential part of this cosmic dance.